Hey guys, it's Jayla. Welcome back. I'm here today to share with you my update for my Petalette palette for this year. I'm working on 3 palettes this year. The first one is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Norvina palette. This is a palette that I'm panning in collaboration with several other ladies, which I will link down below. I'm also working on a collaboration based on a theme that Paula from A Beauty Guru Made Me Do It created. It's called Better Together. And for that, I am panning the Viseart Petite Pro Midsommer. I couldn't remember the name of it. And then lastly, I also have my Baby Petalette palette, which is a Wet n Wild quad in Petalette. So let me share with you how things are going with my Norvina palette. So first I'm going to show you what this palette looked like last month. And now let me share with you what it looks like now. Lots going on this one. But first I'm going to clean it because it's very dirty. I have a wet wipe, which is currently over a vitamin enriched face base by Bobbi Brown. I'm just going to use this to clean the palette because it's pretty grimy. There we go. That's much better. Let me just clean this up a little bit more. There's a bunch of shadow in here, which I'm not going to clean right now because my nails are just a little bit wet. So we're just going to leave it how it is. Okay, there are several changes in here. The first one, which is pretty big, is I did finish the shade Love, which I was super excited to do. I had previously finished Base as well, which was in this pan right here, but I did do a Frank in here, which I'll talk about here in a minute. I think since the last update, I have repressed this shade, which is Incense. I also repressed the shade Dreamer and the shade Drama here at the very end. So those are the 3 shadows that I repressed. I do have a new pan in Incense and also a new pan in Dreamer, of course. I also have one new pan, which is in this shade right here. That is the shade Dazzling. I'm sorry, I have 2 new pans. I also have a new pan in the shade Volatile. So a lot of new changes here. I have expanded the pan in the shades Celestial as well as Wild Orchid. So that's looking good. And of course, in some of these matte shades like Soul and Passion. So yeah, things are looking good. I am wearing the palette today. In terms of what I did with this Frankenshade shade, I actually took a little bit of this shade here, which is Eccentric, yeah. And I combined it with a couple of different shadows. I think I added some shadow from my Shine Bright palette, but now I can't remember which shade that was. It may have been Smoked Plum. That's the one I can think of that I used. And I also used a contour shade from Kevin Aquan. It's their regular contour shade. Mine is still very broken, even though I have repressed it. So it's this one here. So I did add some of this to Incense as well as that Smoked Plum shade and came up with this one. So let me see if I can give you guys a quick swatch of what this looks like. It's a nice crease shade, much better than the original shade Eccentric, which I don't really like the color of this one. So there's that. You can see the difference there. So I just did a little bit of experimenting, and the shadow did originally fill up the very base of that pan. And as you can see, of course, I do have a pretty decent pan in that one now. So I think I'll be able to finish that before the next update. But yeah, things are coming along with this one quite well. 2 of my goals that I set for the May update was to finish Love, which I did, and to hit pan in Dazzling, which I did. So I'm pretty happy with those 2 goals met. I think for next month, I would like to finish Incense. That would be awesome. And I'd like to finish my Franken too, and then potentially Franken this a little bit more, because I want to have just a first crease shade that I'd like to kind of Franken with either some face powder, more of that Kevin Aquan contour shade, and maybe some shadow from my Lorac palette as well. Okay, I have been weighing this palette. It originally started at 191.5 grams. I'm currently at 186.6 grams. My assumption is that the total weight of this is right around 10 grams, and so far I've used a total of 4.9, or about half of this palette. Last month it weighed 188.3 grams, and as I mentioned, it's 186.6 now, which means I used a total of 1.7 grams, which is awesome. I did not have much progress on this palette last month, and I really wanted to make sure that I got some good use on it in the month of May, which I did. And so right now I am tracking over what I need to track in order to finish the palette. So far I've used, as I mentioned, 4.9 grams, and I should be tracking around 4.15. So I'm definitely over my total use for this palette in order to hit my goal of finishing it, which is great. Very excited about that. Okay, so moving on to the second palette. This is part of the Better Together collaboration that Paula created. And for that, as I mentioned, I'm using the Viseart Midsommer palette. And let me share a picture with you what this looked like last month. And this is what my palette looks like now. I'm so excited. I have 2 empty pans. I did not think that I was going to be able to finish both those shades, but luckily I did. I think I repressed both of these while I was repressing the shades from the Norvina palette. And I also repressed this shade, and I have a very nice pan going in there. I might be able to finish that before the next update. We'll have to see. A little bit has crumbled off and it's, fallen out, but that's kind of the nature of these things. My other goal in this palette was to get some really good use on this burgundy shade, and I think it's going to be hard to tell, but I do have a really nice dip going in there. I think for next month, my goal is going to be to hit pan in that shade. I did also use both of these 2 shades today in my eye look, and I think this one could be a really nice second crease shade. It's not as dark as I thought it was, so there it is. I think it's a really nice second crease shade, so that's kind of how I'm going to use that. Once I finish Incense in the Norvina palette, this is probably going to be the one that I focus on, because I really would like to get, I really would like to get some good use on this shadow, so we'll see. So again, hit pan in the burgundy, and then we'll see how I do on that third shade in the top row. The rest of these, I use them as I feel like I need them. I wouldn't be surprised if these 2 are still in this palette at the end of the year. I mean, this is kind of just a fun companion palette to the Norvina, but I am happy with how this is looking. This is doing great. In terms of weight, this started out at 48.5 grams. Last month it was at 46.4, and this month it's at 45.1 grams, which means I used a total of 1.3 grams. This palette, based on the packaging, has 8 grams of shadow, and so I should be tracking around 3.35 grams used in order to finish this palette. I'm currently at 3.4, so I'm tracking right where I need to be tracking. However, I did finish the two of the easiest shades in here, so I don't know how things are going to look for the rest of this. We'll see. Anyway, I'm very happy with the progress on this one. And lastly, for my Baby Pan That palette, I was working on, as I mentioned earlier, the Wet n Wild Petalette Quad. Let me show you a picture of what this one looked like last month. And this is how it's looking like now. As you can see, the packaging is broken, which I'm not surprised. I mean, it's Wet n Wild, you know, it's a very inexpensive palette. But anyway, I have expanded the pan in this top mauve shade as well as the purple, although I think that's a little bit more difficult to see. The other big thing is I did hit pan in this white shade. It's a really crummy, awful shade. It swatches, I mean, it's terrible. It's terrible. But I do use that on occasion, and so, you know, it is what it is. I don't really use this pink frosty shade very much. It's fine. It's just not a shade that I'm using right now. Now that could change throughout the rest of the summer. I do feel like I'm close to hitting pan on that. Right here, I think there could be pan soon, so we'll see. I do enjoy this palette quite a bit. I mean, the mattes. I really like the mattes in here. They're really nice. There's just a couple. This is a crummy swatch. There's just a couple of swatches of those shades. I really do enjoy using both of those. So anyway, this one, in terms of weight, it started out at 23.3 grams. Last month I was at 22 grams, and I'm now at 21.6. So I used 0.4 grams of shadow in here. I've used a total of 1.7 grams, which is pretty good. I mean, this has a total of like 4.5 grams in here, according to, it doesn't say it on the packaging, but I think I referred to Trend Mood maybe in order to get the weight. But yeah, I mean, this is not a palette that I intend to finish this year. And I think once I finish the mattes in here, I'll probably call this palette done, because I don't really have any interest in using up the other two shades. I'm not going to use them for the sake of using them if I don't like the payoff. But yeah, so that's how this is looking. I'm pretty happy with my progress on this one as well. So that is how things are going with my Pan That palette. I'm really happy with the progress in all three of these, but especially my Norvina, ABH Norvina, and then my Better Together palette, the Viseart Midsommer. I think that's going very, very well. Anyway, that is going to be it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you are doing well and staying safe. Please hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Wet wipe over, it's over my Bobbi Brown. Okay, bye.